one team, there was a guy that bat flipped a single, and there's another guy that hit a single and he got down the line in 6.8 seconds, an athletic guy. And I'm thinking, you're a young player, you can run. It just, that sort of stuff can stick with people. Hey, happy Wednesday. Welcome back to another episode of the Five Tool Baseball podcast. I am Dustin McComas, Senior Editor of Five Tool Baseball, joined again by Scouting Director Drew Bishop. No guest today, but if you missed it, we did have Texas pitching coach, recruiting coordinator Sean Allen on the podcast last episode. You can go to Podbean and find that. You can go to our Twitter pages, the Five Tool Twitter page, Facebook pages, Apple Podcasts. There are a lot of places to find our podcast. You don't have to look too hard. We try to make it easy for you. But we had Sean Allen on yesterday, which is going to be the beginning of getting some similar guests on. We're not going to spoil the names, but we do have some guys lined up in a similar role to Sean, because we got so much out of that conversation. We could have gone on for hours, but some really great insight into the recruiting process, into the mind of a big time college assistant coach in terms of what they look for, what they value, and things that they see happening in their program that kind of steer them towards recruiting certain players or trying to build rosters a certain way. So, Drew, kind of thinking back to our interview, what are maybe a couple of things that are still kind of bouncing around in your head that really stuck with you after that conversation?
Yeah, I think the main thing is with a term that Sean used, and we talked about it some in the post-show portion of our last episode, but the term top step guy. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great description of a player that everybody wants in their program. And I can't, probably double-digit people reach out and be like, oh, top step guy, I'm going to use that. And I think it makes so much sense because it can mean so many things and just be such an easy descriptive term for a guy that you want in your program, a guy that's, always paying attention to the game, playing hard in the game mentally, whether he's playing well or not. Does he run out to his position at the same pace and tempo, whether he got a hit or whether he got out the at bat previously to that. And, I think it's a great term. I've heard Sean use it before, but I think it goes a long way in talking about what programs, look for, if you're always that guy, having that steady mental player, it's a huge leg up.
Yeah, it is. And it reminds me of a couple of things from basketball coaches that I've covered. And, Bob Huggins talked about Javon Carter when they recruited him, and he showed up to, one of the reasons why he likes showing up to 8 a.m. games, as much as some coaches despise those and getting up early after being at the gym till like 11 p.m. But one of the reasons why he liked being at those 8 a.m. games is you get to see who's energetic, who's into it, who's getting after it. And he said Javon Carter was picking up full court at 8 a.m. and just getting after it. He's like, that's a kind of guy I need in my program. And sure enough, they turned into Press Virginia with Javon Carter in their program. And Shaka Smart used to talk a lot about players being, are you an energy giver or are you an energy taker? And you know this better than I. If you have those top step kind of guys on your team, it's infectious. That sort of energy can rub off on teammates and on just kind of the makeup and the mindset of a team, as opposed to those guys who might be not those top step guys, and they're kind of taking energy from people, and they kind of have that sort of vibe around them. You got a guy that's flying out of the dugout, that's playing hard all the time, no matter what game it is, no matter what practice is, no matter what time of the year it is. That sort of stuff can rub off on people in a positive way. And it's, Sean brought up the, Troy Tulowitzki, like they valued makeup already, but Tula really helped reinforce the value of having a college team that, you need talent, you need skill. Like Texas is going to, the Texases and the Arkansas and the Texas Techs of the world, they're going to recruit really talented players. But, it was interesting to hear Sean say, Tulo helped reinforce how much the makeup matters, and how far a team can go if they're a good group of guys that are about what you want your team to be about and they play hard. You can win a lot of games in college baseball with some talented guys, but also a group of guys that understands putting in the work behind the scenes and all the extra work and all the things like that. And then when it's time to get out there between the lines, being those high energy, competitive guys from a mental mindset.
Yeah, I mean, it's a culture thing. And, in my experience, the best teams police themselves. The players do. The coaches can be disciplinarians, but the less they have to do that and the more the players police themselves, the stronger team you're going to have. Because, especially in college, you're only allotted certain amounts of times at different periods throughout the year for coaches to be working with players. And if you're going to be the best team and the best individual player you're going to have to do a lot of stuff on your own.
Yeah.
Whether that's extra defense, extra hitting, everybody likes to hit, but are you going to spend time doing defensive stuff, getting in the weight room, paying attention to your nutrition, all that kind of stuff. And when your players who are around each other 24/7 at the college level are the ones that are, basically, like I said, policing that for your program, that's when, you have a chance to be really good. It keeps the coaches from having to waste time on disciplinary stuff, on, having to coach effort. That should never be a thing. And, I think that the group that we had at Texas last year was a great demonstration of that, because we had guys that lived in the cage. And if you came into that program as a new guy and you didn't match that level of work ethic, you weren't going to make it. You were going to get eaten alive by the guys that did. Because if you left early to go do something off the field, when 15, 20 other guys are still there, if that doesn't bother you or make you feel uncomfortable, you're probably not cut from that cloth, so it's just something that coaches look for. Guys that love baseball. It sounds cliche and it sounds silly, but it's starting to be more and more of the exception versus the rule. And as many of those guys as you can compile on a roster, the strength of your program will only go up.
Yeah. And, the player driven stuff, I think is critical. And it reminds me when Nick Saban was talking about when he got his program rolling at Alabama, they knew it when the players started running the strength and conditioning stuff in the off season. He's like, that's when I knew that our program chemistry and things like that were in a good place. Listening to the Astros Red Sox game last night, I think it was Tom Verducci brought up that, or maybe it was Ken Rosenthal, that the Red Sox veterans run their hitting meetings. Yeah, they have a hitting coach and he's super involved and he's doing a lot of stuff from the planning component, but your Kike Hernandez's, your Kyle Schwarbers, those guys are running the hit, JD Martinez, those guys are running the hitting meetings. And it kind of reminds me of that group. We reference this group a lot because I covered them from a writing standpoint and you were the ops guy, but it reminds me of that Texas group last year. Like those guys basically, when practice ended, they ran the team from an extra work standpoint, whether it was getting in the cage, whether it was doing your pitch. I mean, the job that Tristan Stevens and Ty Madden did kind of, setting the tone for that pitching staff from a work standpoint, I really think it made a huge impact on Pete Hansen in the middle of the year. And guys like Cam Williams, who I've never covered a better work ethic than Cam Williams. I mean, that guy just
loves baseball.
He loves baseball. He loves baseball.
It's not just hitting. Like I said, everyone wants to hit and do extra hitting, but man, that guy spent so much time on his craft defensively, because when he came in, he had a tough time at throwing accuracy. And, it's just something that he was always going to fight, but man, he found a way to really improve it. And, we couldn't take him out of the lineup because of it, and those types of players, they lead to special teams, especially as, that, work ethic kind of rubs off on the rest of your program. But, I think one of the things that I always like when you get close to the end of these professional seasons is when a team wins a World Series or a Super Bowl or a national championship, I used to always just turn it off as soon as the game was over. Now, as I've gotten older, I really enjoy listening to the post-game stuff just because I've always been obsessed with team building, right? And culture. And, I think the thing that's always
you and every college coach in America.
Right. Well, I mean, for a good reason, because you have to be good at it if you're going to be good.
Yeah.
And the one thing that always sticks out to me is all the teams that win, they all say the same thing. They love each other as players. They play for one another. The coaches and the players, they all have the same message if you listen to them, because they usually interview 3-4 guys on the main broadcast, and the message is the same. And it sounds almost corny by the time it's done, but you really get a sense of why they were good. And not all of it in every team is for the exact same reasons. They all have their sayings and their mantras and whatever it takes to get them to that next level. But I always love listening to that, because, I always come away from it thinking, well, you see it, that's why they're good. So, we'll get to experience that here again in the next couple of weeks. And I know it's something that I always look forward to.
Yeah. And it's, it's one of those things that like a lot of teams do have it. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win at the highest level. But if you don't have it, you're probably not going to win. Like, it's one of those things, like if you can check that box, you've got a chance. If you don't check that box, you don't have a chance. And, going back to Cam Williams, when you guys signed him, and, he was the guy that had some recruiting intention, but he wasn't like an, oh my gosh, every top D1 program in the country wants him, even though he played at San Jack and put up numbers. But here's, he swings and misses too much, or the arm isn't accurate. But I guarantee you that when you guys and those coaches called San Jack or called people around Cam Williams, they just gave all those glowing reviews about what kind of person he is and what kind of worker he is. And sure enough, he got the most out of his skill set, out of his talent. He got better at the University of Texas. He was able to make that jump in competition and excel and be a starter for an Omaha team. And, sometimes that's the difference. And that's why you hear Sean Allen talk about it. That's why when I talk to scouts, they bring up the importance of makeup, and they're always trying to find people that can give them, honest, good assessments about makeup and things like that, because it can sometimes be a tiebreaker, or it can be that thing that holds you back or propels you forward. I was down at Premier in Tomball Saturday and Sunday, and one of the things that stuck with me is, one team, there was a guy that bat flipped a single, and there's another guy that hit a single and he got down the line in 6.8 seconds, an athletic guy. And I'm thinking, you're a young player, you can run. It just, that sort of stuff can stick with people. And just like on the flip side, it can stick with people when, a guy's just bouncing out of the dugout. He's super energetic. He's taking pitches a certain way. The Hallmark kid, I don't remember his first name, and I wonder if he's Pat Hallmark's son, but played for the Alamo Drillers 2024 kid. Super energetic, top step guy. The way he takes pitches, the way he competes, and like I barely got to see him swing the bat just because he wasn't pitched to that much, but it stuck with me how he played the game, how he approached the game. It's like, yeah, you know what? Like, I want to watch that guy again. There might be something there with this guy. I bet he's a guy that teammates like being around and kind of gets the most out of what he has. And, no matter what level it is, you're going to hear coaches talk about, no matter what sport it is, you're going to hear coaches talk about that. And it used to be, in Orange Bloods, I think fans sometimes would get upset with how many times the word culture was used, but that's everywhere because it matters. If you don't have it, and if you don't know the types of things that go into it, it can be really tough building a program. It can be really tough succeeding as an individual in that jump in competition at the collegiate level.
No doubt. And, like you said, watching kids play this past weekend, got to see a couple of guys that we've seen and watched. Got to see Ryan Black play a little bit on Sunday. He was good. 2023, Jerson Martin, saw him swing the bat a couple of times. I believe he was on one of the Nationals area code team.
Yeah, I think you're right.
He's definitely some talent and some juice in the bat. I saw him hit a foul ball, just bomb, but it left the yard pretty quick, and it was different coming off the bat. But, going back to talking about the guys in the dugout and how they play, one of the things that really bothers me when I watch games is, like you said, if you have a kid that can run and he doesn't use an opportunity to get down the line, whether you're safe or out, if there's somebody there to watch you, they probably have a stopwatch and can get some useful information if you run hard.
Right.
and on the flip side, and get some useful information if you don't.
Right.
But it's something, there's always people watching. I would encourage kids to just assume there's someone there watching them, and that can be your one shot to impress somebody, or scratch yourself off a list. If I'm looking over in the dugout and you're on your phone during a game, like that's a huge red flag.
Yeah, that I'm kind of surprised at how much that happens. Like I'm starting to see it more and more, and I'm like, really? Like in between innings? Come on now.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be on the top step on your phone. I know that.
Right.
So it's just it's something that it may seem harmless and little, but coaches pay attention to that kind of stuff. And if I have a guy that's busting his butt out to his position versus a guy that's on his phone during the game, that's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's just little things like that. And as hard as baseball is, if you can, we talk about controlling the controllables, that's it, something that can take you a long way in baseball, because the rest of it's so hard. You can control if you're on your phone or not during a game. You can control if you run hard to your position. You can control hard if you run hard to first base all the time. And, it's just something, we'll beat a dead horse on that, but it really sticks out about the way you approach the game and how seriously you treat it. It's just something that I pay attention to. And, if I'm trying to determine whether I want this guy or that guy, those can be tiebreakers.
Yeah. Yeah. And some guys that I saw this past weekend down in Tomball, Carson Lorch, who played for Phenom Baseball, Cypress Woods, uncommitted guy, 2022 shortstop. Just as a high energy guy. And he hit a double into the gap. He was 4.35 on the turn. And like, that sort of things like really sticks with me. It's like, wow, like that's a very legitimate run tool. He's putting the ball in play hard. He's playing with a lot of energy. He's competing at a high level. Like that's the kind of guy I think college coaches that, hey, we're kind of still looking for 2022 infielders. That's the kind of guy they might gravitate towards because he's standing out. I'm in that type of way. Dylan Lester, 2023 catcher from Deer Park, who was playing with Lumberjacks baseball. My first opportunity to see him, a guy that's going to be a no doubt 5-55 guy in 2023, but just a great vibe about him. Just a really, competitive nature, like wants to get in the box and attack the game. It's 9 a.m. on a Sunday. Like he's a really good player. He's played a ton of baseball this fall. He doesn't have to be out there necessarily. Right. Like, and there he is, just super into everything that's going on, ready to get into the box, carries himself with a ton of confidence, very energetic. It helps that he ended up hitting 2 homers that weekend, and he was 2.01 pop time down to second base. But that'll work. Those sorts of guys like Carson Queck, he's fully healthy again, a 5-55 guy in the 2022 class. He got on the mound. He's pitching. He's probably not going to pitch at Kansas City. I was talking to his dad. He says, no, he's an outfielder, but he's going to pitch for his high school team, and he wants to get out of there, and he's working on his changeup, and he's doing some things, and he's attacking the game, and he's, not one to come out of the game when the coach goes out there. He wants to stick in there. Like that sort of stuff, like resonates days later when you see those types of players. And, another guy, Caden Ferraro, 2023 lefty to play for the 5-star Houston team, was only up to 84, but man, he could pitch, and he competed, and he executed, and he got to the box too, and he was trying to drive the ball out of the yard. And it's fun to see those guys. That makes doing what we do when we go out to the park, it's fun. It's fun to write about those guys. It puts a little pep in your step when you're seeing them play that way. And those types of guys always deserve some extra recognition.
Yeah, someone, so I didn't see him play this past weekend, but I was talking to Braden Randall last week, and he had played with the 12 down in Jupiter. And a guy that was on our 5-55 that he mentioned that he was really impressed with was Anthony Silva. And it wasn't for necessarily what he did results wise, but it was how he carried himself and how he, gave off that impression that he just loves baseball. I know Braden made the comment to me that he was like, man, he was bouncing around. He was into the game, when he was 0 for 2 late in the game, and he didn't let that affect his defense. he was keeping everybody engaged. And I know that stuck out to Braden. So I know college coaches and scouts will pick up on that too, watching him play. But just another example of some of the stuff we're talking about. But, when you're impressing your peers and, they're mentioning it to people like us, that you've done something to really stand out. And at that level of event and the level of team that the 12 are putting out, I mean, that said a lot to me.
Yeah. And I'm not surprised to hear that about Anthony, man. That seems like the way he carries himself. One of the reasons why every time I think of him, I think of the word solid. He's a solid ball player. Like, he can do a lot of things. He carries himself the right way. Like, it's I think that one of the safest bets in that class to be a college contributor, assuming he makes it to college, because he's undoubtedly going to be a guy that's already scouted a lot and is going to get scouted a lot this spring for sure. But, in the future, kind of looking ahead to some things we plan on doing, I mentioned that we're going to have more coaches on. We're going to continue this theme with recruiting, but we're also going to open the door too, kind of from the developmental side in the future. What's kind of going on in the world of pitching development, hitting development, nutrition, strength and conditioning, get some experts on in those fields and just kind of take us through, what that process is like. What's it like to be a college baseball player in a strength and conditioning program? What's it like to have a nutritionist at a college baseball program, and the types of things that go into that as well. But yeah, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the timing of it will make a lot of sense. We'll do it in November as guys are starting to wind down for the fall, and because that period of time from end of November through January is huge. That's where you can really separate yourself as a player. And I don't know about all of these guys, but if they're like me and like you, the nutrition piece can play a huge role in that time period, because I don't know about you, but I eat a lot from November through the beginning of January, and that's okay. Yeah. But figuring out times to really do that, and when to, eat this, not eat that, those are some of the crucial things. And, we're looking forward to bringing a nutritionist on and, just talking through some of the stuff that, college athletes go through on the nutrition side, but it's all stuff that you can do now.
Yeah.
It just,
or at least put in your head, like, okay, this is why, like, these are the types of things I can kind of start thinking about and gearing my diet towards.
Right. Yeah. It's just, I mean, it's a part of development. Mm-hmm. And if you're committed to being a better player and better athlete, there's lots of ways to do it that aren't that difficult and aren't super expensive. Just for, I think a good place to start is eating better than you currently do is a win in itself. Yes. And luckily most high school kids are blessed with fully functioning metabolisms,
elite metabolism.
That we don't get to experience anymore. But there are ways to do it. I know a lot of kids are trying to gain weight, so we're looking forward to adding that component to our development series. Like Dustin mentioned, the strength and conditioning, we'll have some people on to talk about that, talk about arm care programs. It's just something that we're passionate about, and we have access to some people that are the best in the business. And if we can share that with you guys in an opportune time right before you go into the break, hopefully it can help springboard you into a good spring season.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that stuff really, really matters. And you're seeing it matter a lot at the professional level, whereas the aging curve in professional baseball, it's starting to kind of slow down a little bit. You're starting to see guys that are older players still be able to sustain great success. Adam Wainwright, Charlie Morton. I think in the NBA about, Chris Paul, I'm not saying high schoolers or college players need to become vegans, but he changed his diet and eliminated a lot of stuff. Dwight Howard used to pound Skittles like they were just, his breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He stopped, and he's in much better shape now. Like, you're seeing it happen at the professional level, and you're seeing these guys prolong their careers at a very high level simply because of what they're putting in their bodies and how they're taking care of themselves. And it's one of the reasons why I think in Major League Baseball, we're starting to see people, and I always kind of think of things sometimes from a fantasy perspective, but used to always assume, oh, this hitter's 34, he's going to be 35, he's going to get worse. And you're starting to see guys that don't. You're starting to see, I don't know, Joey Votto was a change in philosophy hitting wise. He just decided he wanted to try to hit homers, but he's still performing at a really high level. Paul Goldschmidt has been as solid as ever, even though he's kind of getting up there in age as well. And I mentioned some of the pitchers. I think, guys like Adam Wainwright learned their bodies differently, whether it was stuff like how their core muscles work or incorporating yoga or things like that. There are so many things that you can do as a player as you start to kind of jump up in that competition level, whether it's college, professionally, or whatever, that can really start to get the most out of your bodies and allow you to perform better on the field. But we've got to cut this one short because I've got some traveling and Drew is a man on demand for some calls. But any professional baseball thoughts before we wrap things up? I will let you know that we've tagged this podcast on Apple Podcasts as safe from a cussing standpoint. So we can't talk about Laz Diaz last night. I'm not going to say that
That's a bad word.
I'm not going to
in Boston.
In Boston today, that is a very bad word. I'm not going to say I'm ready for robot umps yet, but I'm starting to see kind of the appeal for that. My biggest gripe is, and we see this at the college level way too much, baseball rewards umpires who don't deserve being rewarded with their biggest games. Laz Diaz's percentages for balls and strikes, they're like the worst in Major League Baseball. And he's out there doing an ALCS game. But one thing that is interesting to me is the postseason. We're starting to see it kind of play like a college baseball postseason from a pitcher usage standpoint. Like, hey, you kind of hope a starter can get you into 5. If you can't, you're really leaning into that bullpen. Maybe you're bringing a starter out of the pen. Maybe he's going to start another day later on. It's kind of been funny to me to kind of see that shift. And it's like, this kind of looks familiar to like what a regional looks like in college baseball.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a completely, like we mentioned on the offensive side the other day, it's a completely different game once you get to the postseason, and it's fun.
Totally different.
It adds a different dynamic, and I know it's been exciting. Shout out to all the Dodger fans that left early yesterday.
That's tough.
They deserve not getting to enjoy that game because Mookie showed why he's a star and added some intrigue to that series. It was going to be a shame if it wrapped up that easily, but now we got a game. Now we got a series.
Both series. It's game on. I think Cody Bellinger too can be an example for young players. He's the high fastball, big velocity killed him this year. And he made some changes recently as they were kind of heading into the postseason and trying to handle that pitch better. And what does he do? He hits the biggest homer of his season by far for him. Gets a fastball up in a 2-strike count. And Luke Jackson, the reliever, after the game said, "Hey, I would have thrown that again." Like, that was our report. Yeah. That's where we wanted to throw the ball. He just beat us. And he beat them by adjusting his swing, kind of changing a little bit to be able to try to handle that big velocity up in the zone. It just goes to show you that even some of the best guys at the highest level are always having to make some changes. There's always something that they're trying to get better at. There's always something that they're thinking about and trying to fix that hole in their game and identifying that hole in the game and being willing to try to figure out a way to combat that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a game of adjustments and the game changes, and you have to change. I said this to some people the other day. I mean, as soon as you think you have this game figured out, you're done. It's pretty simple because, people are going to change how they pitch you. They're going to change their defensive shifts if you're batting. So you have to figure out ways to combat that and, be an ever evolving player, or your career is probably going in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Well said. That's a good spot to end on. Thank you for listening to episode 13 of the 5-Tool Baseball Podcast. Again, a short one today. We'll be back next week with a guest. You can go to Apple Podcasts, just search 5-Tool Baseball Podcast. Follow me on Twitter at Dustin L. McComas. Follow Drew at Drew H. Bishop. Follow 5-Tool on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, every social media platform. We're there. So have a good Wednesday. Enjoy that postseason baseball. And until we talk to y'all next time, take care.